kind of touching base on the faith thing, I don't think I realized it until the last couple of years that I believe God put me with this diagnosis and put me in certain situations to where I hopefully can help other people. And my driving force is to do things a little bit different.
Welcome to the Pulse Collective podcast.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Pulse Collective podcast, otherwise known as the PCP. I'm your host, Shahrukh Ansari. On today's episode, I'm super excited because we're going to have a very special guest that I'm going to be introducing in a little bit. What I do want to really get into, for those of you who are just getting into our podcast, we are Pulse Marketing Collective. We partner directly with clinics, wellness clinics, med spas, IT clinic, technology spaces, SaaS leaders. Essentially, we partner up with them and we help them leverage AI tools to increase their bottom line revenue and their profit as well. The PCP is our show where we're hosting a bunch of business leaders all across Canada and the United States. They come forward and uncover their journeys, any lessons they've learned along the way, and visions for the future of their industries as well. Today, I'm super pumped again because I'm bringing on James Marlin. James Marlin is a founder of multiple functional medicine clinics down in Texas. James has been pushing for more diagnosing not just the symptom, but the root cause of a medical issue for quite a few years now. So I'm super excited to get his perspective on his story. And I think a lot of you will be inspired by the story that he's coming into and how he's built himself up to the point that he's at. So I'm not going to go into too much detail introducing you, James. Feel free to take the podium and introduce yourself to everyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be on. So just a little bit about myself. I've been in the medical field for 26 years now. I started off in the orthopedic sales and surgical world. So I kind of grew up in that world, so to speak, of understanding medicine. And that's been kind of my teacher for this whole time is the orthopedic world. And so my journey really began about 15 years ago whenever I was diagnosed with a liver disease. PSC is what it's called. And basically what PSC does is it shuts down the bile ducts in your liver. So you're not able to basically filter anything through your system. So you just kind of have toxic waste sitting in your bloodstream essentially. And so through that journey, it took a couple of years for them to diagnose me with the disease. And so I experienced just the ups and downs of testing and pills and not having any answers. And so through that, I just started looking at alternative ways to take care of myself. And I came upon IV vitamins. 11 years ago, it was not near as popular as it is today. So I found a physician down in Austin, Texas, that she was actually doing IV vitamins. And I flew down and met with her, learned a ton from her, and tried my first infusion. And just the way that it made me feel, I decided that night that I was going to put a business in motion because I just felt that I wanted to be a part of educating people in a more prophylactic approach to our health instead of just waiting until we're sick and not feeling well. What are just some basic things that we can do to just stay healthier and not just wait until just reactive? I think we're all so reactive with what we do. And, whenever I was diagnosed, they gave me, they said most PSC patients live about 10 years from when they're diagnosed. So whenever I started the company, I looked at this as that I had an expiration date. And I just wanted to try to educate as many people as possible and do things just a little bit different. And so we started off as just an IV vitamin concierge company where we went to people's homes and businesses. And, out in West Texas, especially, we're not exactly known for our open-mindedness whenever it comes to medicine. We come from the good old boy, rub some dirt on it type of mentality. So, the grind of educating people back then was an interesting journey for sure, but the goal has always been to continue to build into a clinic where somebody can come and get different treatments depending on their budget, belief, and diagnosis. And We've been very fortunate to build into a couple different locations, one in Lubbock, Texas, and one in Amarillo, Texas, where we just continue to explore new options out there in the integrative functional medicine world. And that's kind of where we're at today.
Just so I got it clear and for our audience, how long ago did you get that diagnosis?
15 years ago.
So 15 years ago, they gave you a 10-year
Yes,
kind
sir.
of rough
Yeah,
timeline. And
absolutely.
yeah,
There's no question that without if I hadn't have had I had the business idea that I wanted a nurse to come to my house and give me an IV. I just didn't know what I wanted in it. And that's where I came across IV vitamins. But, if I hadn't had the business idea, honestly, there's no way that I would be sitting here today because I was just unhealthy. I was depressed. So I was drinking and eating like crap and doing all the things that you're not supposed to do for a liver disease. But I just honestly, I think I just accepted the fact that I was going to die. And I was okay with it at the time just because of a ton of depression that I had. And I was just exhausted with feeling bad. And so, I still have the disease today and it still progresses, but it progresses at such a slower rate than what I was, you know, I'm just night and day different from what I was back whenever I was diagnosed.
curious, have you spoken to those doctors today that diagnosed you like 15 years ago?
I have not been to my liver specialist since I opened the business. Which that I'm not an advocate of that, by the way, just to be clear. I want to be very clear that I'm not saying fire your doctors and, don't do it. I just personally I felt part of my problem was that I was depressed for multiple reasons, but I think that I was just depressed because it took 2 years to be diagnosed. So I was in a 2-year cycle of just pills and the emotional roller coaster of this might be wrong with you and this might be wrong. I had more colonoscopies than I ever cared to count. My gallbladder was taken out. It was just this cycle. And so I really just didn't find value for me personally. I'm more of the type that I would rather just kind of take care of myself. And one day, if it all ends, then that's the good Lord's plan for me. And I just felt that following up with some of those physicians just wasn't going to be a good plan for me because I knew that I probably wasn't going to be a very compliant patient also as far as their plans go.
You touched on something, and this is usually not a question I ask on the podcast, but I think it's relevant for a lot of people watching. How important was faith to you during that time to get you through that?
Well, I mean, if I'm going to be completely honest, it honestly didn't have anything to do with it back then because so 20 years ago, I found my uncle murdered on his couch. That put me into a depression just in itself. I turned to alcohol. I tried drugs for the first time to try to cope with that. And so whenever I got the liver disease diagnosis, for me, there was almost a part of it where it was a relief because I was okay. I was tired of the pain, not only medically, but mentally. And I was just tired of that feeling. I really didn't tap into what I would say more my faith until the last couple years. It's a big part of me now. I think that, I had a lot of questions over what happened with my uncle as far as faith goes. And I've always been a believer, but nothing like what I am today. So I believe the journey for me personally, I have been I've been fortunate enough to experience some things in my life that have brought me to where I'm at today, which is part of the reason even of having a voice on a podcast is because I believe that I've experienced these things and that I should use my voice in a way that I haven't before to potentially connect with other people that have battled the same things or inspire people to do things different, whatever it is. I just want to be part of the fix, not part of the problem.
I think your story is going to inspire a lot of people. And even if you found yourself in that situation, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in similar, if not exactly the same type of situation before. And this kind of sheds some light on the fact that there is light on the other side. You're now 15 years into this and you've gone through stuff even 20 years ago. And you brought yourself to this point where, like you said, you're able to talk to me on this platform. And that in and of itself is a win, regardless of all the success you've had in your career. To me, that's the biggest win that you've carried forward. I do want to, first of all, like, I think that sets the tone really well for where we want to go into with this conversation. You did mention to me before that during COVID, there was a period of time that you were kind of initiating this nursing home hydration program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what you were doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually started a few months before COVID. The focus of what we've done has always been more medical, and so we've always tried to do a little bit more research based information and things like that. So I believe that's what separated us from like the hangover places and all that type of stuff. So I'm telling you that in that we had a nursing home reach out to us about coming to hydrate a resident or two for them so that they didn't have to ship them to the hospital. And we basically went in and met with them and said, how about we create a program that we come in, twice a month to once a month and hydrate these residents for wounds, malnutrition, UTIs, and see if this will help just overall kind of wellness and quality of life. And so we had started that nursing home program where it was gaining traction just by itself. We started off in West Texas. We had moved into the DFW area, and then COVID hit, and obviously nobody knew what the hell to do with the first round of COVID. And so really within a week, our business tripled with the nursing home program because people were just trying to throw zinc and vitamin C and hydration at them. And so my business partner and I, we were on flights just about every day flying. We rolled it out across 3 states. We did business in Idaho and Utah and Texas. And so we were driving nonstop and flying to locations and in and out of, COVID units and experiencing that whole devastation of that particular population, sometimes dying alone. I mean, it really was a lot looking back on that. But the good thing that came out of that was that we became this program really started seeing the evidence that we knew it could have. So the anecdotal evidence started coming to light, and it became just more of a standard of care in long-term facilities. And so a couple years ago, I actually merged our business, that side of the business, with another company, and we helped them roll that out to 7 different states. I believe now that program's across 10 different states and just continues to grow and be a standard of care in long-term care units.
Wow. I feel like I'm not the type of person that usually gets like at a loss for words, but I think your story is super inspiring, even for people like the younger generation. Like I've definitely experienced more than the average, say, 25, 30-year-old man typically has, just personally as well. But I think that's also given me a similar drive where it drove me from just wanting to work a job, successful business, working with clients directly. I feel like everybody has a why, and your why really grew you to the point that you're at. I think now from a business lens, though, like I'm really curious, what would you say was your driving factor? Of course, there was demand. That's the most important thing. There was demand for what you were offering the public market because it was something that a lot of people didn't really have knowledge about. What really allowed you to scale into multiple states when it came to that nursing hydration program? Like, is there something you could accredit that to?
What drives me is doing things different. I almost refuse to accept the answer whenever people say, like, can't be done just because it's never been done. So for me, there was a driving factor in that I loved the fact that we were doing something different, that it really, of course, IVs have been given in nursing homes and all those things, but we created a true program where we had specific IVs for specific diagnoses. And we were really, not to sound dramatic, but we were really changing medicine in some of these instances where we were changing a new standard of care where people were getting different options for wounds that had just been chronic wounds that have stayed that way, or chronic UTIs where they get shipped out to the hospital. So there was a side of me of that newness and that going against the grain a little bit that was exciting to me. But I think for me, the driving force of improving quality of life for anyone is really why I started the company, because of my own journey that I was on. And I really, kind of touching base on the faith thing, I don't think I realized it until the last couple of years that I believe God put me with this diagnosis and put me in certain situations to where I hopefully can help other people. And my driving force is to do things a little bit different. So whenever we first went to some of these nursing home medical directors, they were like, what the hell are you talking about? There's no need for this. There's, all that, but we kept pushing. And so for me, that push to improve quality of life is just a driving factor for me across the board. And I don't believe you always have to be the first to do it, but I don't believe you should ever be the last to do some of these things.
I feel like persistence pays. It's the best way, because you had so many obstacles that you had to get through to make this vision come to life. Like, a lot of people see that first wall on their entrepreneurship experience and they're like, oh shit, this is not for me. Let me like turn back and like maybe do something else. But it's really just about, you had a why. And I always tell people too, like within my own team, you need to identify what your why is first. Like, why, even if you're working a job, why are you showing up to do that job in the first place? Do you have your mom at home that you need to take care of? Do you have people that you're responsible for? Once you identify that, you not only just show up, you try to strive to be the best version of yourself every single day. And that always distinguishes the people that end up being successful, like yourself, and people that always just have a vision that stays in their mind, but they never actually make it come to life. So that's super valuable. I want to step back a little bit just from this conversation, because I want to look at the industry as a whole. And I think we're looking at the industry in med spas, aesthetic clinics, wellness clinics, natural medicine. There's a real demand for it right now. And like you said, 10 years ago compared to now, it's day and night. And I'm actually hearing it even just as a guy that doesn't necessarily go into certain places. I'm seeing a lot of my own like warm network of people that I won't typically think are going into certain places are now considering going into med spas and like getting certain things done and like going into IV medication. Like, I see a lot of people getting vitamin drips now. And it's very interesting to see the change. So you kind of covered the change and the evolution from the last 10 years to now. Where do you see the market now headed from today for the next 10 years? And I also want to tie in the concept of AI, which has taken over the market now. And everybody is so keen on implementing it, or at least just knowing about it. But you can speak probably better on this than I can, but I can speak from my experience with my clients and people I've worked with. Everybody, when you're very true to a certain type of way of working and it's been proven, tried and tested for decades, it's really difficult to change your mindset and be like, hey, there might be a better way of doing things, or there might be a different way of doing things. And I've noticed medicine, people have done things one way for a very long time. So now they look at something like this as, yeah, it's cool. It's this fancy new, like shiny little object, but do I need it? Probably not. But in reality, a lot of people are going to implement it, whether they like it or not, in the next 10 years. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on that. And where do you see this industry really headed in the next 12 months, but also the next 10 years too, because it's booming right now.
I think there's a couple factors to it. I think, at least here in the States, a lot of our medicine has come from, is it covered by insurance? So it all really is driven by insurance for the most part. And a lot of the functional medicine world, the peptides and IV drips and, some of these things are just not covered by insurance. And so I think our generation coming up, getting a little bit older now, we're starting to look at things and say, well, I don't want to be 80 years old and be bedbound. There's all this, new, quote unquote, new technology out there that can be utilized, where the baby boomers that are dying off, they were very, very old school, not only just from a rub some dirt on it type standpoint, but they only did things that were covered by insurance and that their doctor told them to take. That's all that they were going to do. So I think social media and some of the big names out there, people like Gary Brecka and, people like that are having conversations that get spread around through social media, people are starting to look at those type of things and look at, well, are there different ways besides me just taking all these pills? Can I do other things? Nutrition and gut health and all these things are now becoming a bigger conversation. And, even back to COVID a little bit, even in our regular clinics, we saw people that all of a sudden said, shit, I might want to look at taking care of myself by boosting my vitamin D levels and losing some weight because now my risk factors drop a little bit if I'm in a little better shape. So they started to look at,
Right.
wait, there's got to be a different way. So I think it's just becoming a little bit more mainstream because of new generations coming up and continual push of conversation. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that there is still, once again, at least in the States, I think that there's still a hurdle from the insurance standpoint of we can do things even if it's not FDA approved and not insurance driven. I think our current administration is doing a pretty good job of asking some more questions that's making people think in a different way. No matter what your political views are, doesn't really matter. I think that it's exciting that somebody's asking some questions and saying, wait, is this really what we want to do? Just because we've always done it doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. So
Yeah.
I think the future is exciting where I even, hope that over the next few years, insurance companies will start to recognize some of these therapies and start to adopt some of these where more and more people can get on board with it. But even if they don't, I just truly believe the generation coming up is going to buy into the longevity of life and investing in your health, just like you do your wealth. I mean, that's to me the way that we should be looking at this.
Could you see, I guess in your particular case, could you see AI actually automating the claims process a bit when it comes to insurance? Is that a potential use case that you see?
Definitely. Now, at my clinics, we are cash pay only just because insurance doesn't cover a lot of it. But I still have my hand in the orthopedic world where I see claims processed. And I do believe that AI is going to play a major role in billing, especially where we're utilizing AI currently is through dictation, creating soap notes and things like that. Whenever a practitioner walks in and has a conversation with you, now all of that is now put together in your note, where now as the practitioner, you have even a little bit of extra time to spend with your patient because AI is now creating that note for you. And you can be a true provider now instead of just being somebody who you got 15 minutes, go, go, go. Once again, back to the insurance model. So that's how we're currently doing it. But, we've flirted around with some phone AI things. For me personally, I still believe that having a live voice that you can talk to and things like that is still really
Completely
important.
agree.
I think that as AI improves, though, there'll definitely be a place for that. From the clinic side of things, what we're looking at is AI being able to go in and pull data for us to where we're able to put this, say, a corporate wellness program that we're doing, where we can provide over the past quarter, the past 6 months. Here's the improvements that we've seen from A1C checks to vitamin D levels, whatever it may be. AI can help us pull that out because EMR systems there's good things about all of them, but data collection to me has always been something that I think is lacking in any EMR system that I've seen. So I think
Mhm.
AI could be part of telling a little better story for each one of the patients.
I completely agree with that. I think even people that I've worked with in the past, one issue is when it's coming to data collection, a lot of people, which I'm not accusing you of this because I'm sure you have a little bit more insight on this, but a lot of people are starting to just go on ChatGPT and you're going to have a patient and I'm going to search up, okay, yeah, patient, let's say Becky, she has this condition and I'm thinking of giving her like this vitamin injection or whatever the case may be. Build me a plan for her based upon the fact that this is her pre-existing condition. You're feeding all this patient data into this public open-ended type of database and you don't know who's actually getting access to some of these prompts. The reality is on the back end, ChatGPT, it does encrypt certain data, but your prompts are not. Though people don't really understand I guess, the security aspect of it when it comes to something as sensitive as that, because one thing that we're seeing firsthand is you can implement AI all you want, but they're really going to start coming down on certain regulations and the security aspect of it. And you have to make sure you're compliant with everything that's going on. Otherwise, that's a bigger problem that your business is going to face. I do want to step into a different gear now because we talked kind of macro level about AI in the industry as a whole. You talked about really what's working well for your business in terms of the dictation, and you're implementing things just to kind of not replace jobs, but really make your job easier, which I think is something that a lot of people haven't really understood, that that's a possibility, that you don't need to replace everyone. But where do you kind of see your biggest barrier right now? If you had a goal, say 12 months from now, this is where we want to be from a growth perspective. What is the one thing that's holding you right now from getting there? Is it more operations wise? Is it more your sales funnel? Like, what's really holding you right now?
I would say, I mean, I guess I would lean more into probably sales funnel, but I more tie that back to education for patients to understand a little bit of what we do, because everybody knows in general, if you have high blood pressure, you can go to a urgent care clinic or your primary care and get a prescription for high blood pressure medicine. But I think having the understanding of the new way of doing things, of let's dive into your body and let's find out what is causing the high blood pressure, not let's let's mask the symptom by giving you a pill. I mean, so from an operations standpoint, I think you always have to pivot and move as you grow. But we've done that to a certain point. I mean, we grew a company across multiple different states during that nursing home. And so I kind of understand that. I think where I bang my head against the wall sometimes is getting patients to understand this different way of doing things and getting people in the door for these type of services. Because in the social media world, you have 3 seconds to capture somebody. How are you going to
Probably
capture?
even less now.
Yeah. So I would say that, that's really our biggest hurdle that we have, is just getting education in front of people.
How are you educating people right now? Is it typically through social media? Is that what you're?
We do social media, but honestly, what I've learned over the past probably year that I've realized works better is sponsoring certain events where I can get in front of the right people. Like I'm going to use we sponsored a what they call a Iron Horse shootout, which is Amarillo. They have a competition with motorcycle cops from all around the country, and we were one of the big sponsors for that. Well, through that got me in front of some key players with APD and opened up new conversations of corporate wellness and some of these other factors. And so I've kind of sampled that a little bit, because historically I've sponsored events, but I've never really had any conversations with people. It's more, golf tournaments where you give some money and you play some golf and all that kind of stuff. But I've started almost asking a little bit more, because I find that you've got the right audience whenever you're a part of some of these events. So that works so much better than Google ads or Facebook ads and all that stuff.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, you just get really good at golf. That's
Absolutely.
that's nice. So it's like
I
a
can't wait.
win-win situation either way.
Yeah.
No, it's super cool. I like your perspective on that because a lot of people are losing sight of the fact that that warm network and just person to person interaction is still super important. Like that's priceless. There's no automation in the world that's going to replace somebody's emotional, just we're naturally human beings. We need that emotional connection to anybody that we're doing business with. Um, I guess now just in terms of your strategy, do you also have like a sales team? So when you're doing these ads for people, are you the one that's managing anybody that's expressing interest to you? Or do you have people that are also helping bring those people in, maybe book appointments with you? Like, how is that funnel
Yeah.
looking like for
So
you?
we have a team of people that, reach out to patients if there's questions answered. We have social media people. I more just handle kind of the B2B type things. And then of course I talk with clients all the time in the clinics of, just experiences and my story and all that type of stuff. But, our staff does a great job of educating patients, and, like our nurses that are given IVs, they do a really good job of educating you on the other services that might be beneficial for you, because you're sitting there for 45 minutes. So instead of just necessarily talking about the weather, we're going to try to identify what's going on with you, where we can create a protocol not only for IV vitamins, but for peptides and other things that maybe come into play. But we do, the staff is just really good about educating patients, even if they're there for one service, us educating about,
Having a different strategy, which you just mentioned you have, like having a different strategy for your B2C clients versus your B2B clients is super important. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people tend to merge that into one centralized strategy, which is not going to work. Somebody that's coming into your clinic is going to be different than somebody that's like actually like actual practice that wants to do business with you. Super cool that you have like two distinguished things. And I think a lot of viewers can get value from that is knowing that you need to have a set strategy, whichever target you really choose. If you just want to stay in the B2C space, it's completely different. I've done that before. I've worked with specifically, even with my business right now, my team and I worked specifically with just med spas and completely different than working with actual like people that provide the equipment to those med spas. Like it's a completely different ballgame altogether. So I want to kind of wrap up. I know we've hit kind of the 30-minute mark here, but James, is there one piece of advice now? Of course, you really identified, and I want to wrap this up myself for a lot of viewers, the importance of your why, the importance of being persistent. You've heard it firsthand from somebody himself who really may not have even been here 10 years ago, but now is able to share this voice to you. Is there something that for young entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs that are probably earlier on in their careers, there's some piece of advice that you can share with them?
I think for entrepreneurs, I would just really tell you to trust and believe in yourself. I think early on in my career, I didn't trust myself enough. Even when I merged the company 2 years ago, honestly, I didn't trust in myself. I thought I needed other people. So I think it's great to listen to other people around you. But more than anything, it's in your mind for a reason. Whatever business you've come up with, whatever you're doing. So I think you really have to believe and trust in what your vision is and what you want to do, and not second guess and all the things that we do as entrepreneurs, because there's such an emotional roller coaster that happens in this world. If I look back at myself, I would tell my younger self that you've got to trust and believe in yourself more, and always listen to people around you, but trust in yourself most important.
Super cool. James, do you have now, before we wrap up, where can people find you? What, anywhere on social media? Do you have a website? Is there anywhere that people can actually find you online?
You know what? Me personally, best way is LinkedIn. It's just James Marlin. And then our wellness centers are IVRSTX.com. And that gives a variety of all of our different services, and you can book appointments or give us a call.
Super cool. James, it was an honor. I appreciate you spreading some awareness about your story too. I'm wishing you the best of health, the best of success in your business moving forward. And I appreciate you coming on again.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.